My name is Diane Wilson. I'm executive director of the San Antonio Estuarine Waterkeeper. But actually, I started in 1989 with Calhoun County Resource Watch. And I started because 1989 was the first year the toxic release inventory, the community right to know, that was the first year it came out, and it was the first year industry had to report their emissions going in the air, going in the water, going in trucks, put it in landfills, put it in injection wells. And this tiny little county, 18,000, we were #1 in the nation. And I was working in a fish house, not catching any shrimp. And I was just blown away by that information. It's like, how can you be #1 and if you're #1 in this country, you're probably placing #1 worldwide. And so I acted out of character, and I went down to our city hall in little fishing town, Seadrift, and I asked to rent their little buildings so we could have a meeting about that information. And that was when the snowball rolling to hell started. That was it. That was the incident that started it, and it ran into Formosa's expansion, and I've been doing it for 36 years now. Well, the thing of it is like, for the longest, there weren't the successes. There were people wouldn't speak to you. You couldn't get any press. The local newspaper would not cover you. Matter of fact, they told me, because I tried to get them to cover my press releases, and they told me if I got ran over by a train, then they might cover me. And if I went to try to do the Victoria Advocate, I would have the reporter come and say, we got to write something good about Formosa, and we can't use your name. You're going to have to give me somebody else I can quote, because you give people's name credibility and you get credibility. And so most of the time that I was fighting, I think most people were very afraid, because it was very controversial. The fact that you were speaking against industry, the fact that I was a woman doing it, and the fact that I was a fisherwoman. It was very kind of classist. They're like, what does a fisherman from Seadrift know? And especially a woman fisherman. So I was kind of getting it from all corners, and they couldn't believe I was doing it for the reasons I said, because it was quite simple. I really do. I really care about that bay. I get real personal about the bay, and people just can't believe it, and they think kept saying I was in it for fame, like I was going to Hollywood or something. I don't know what they thought. And they kept thinking maybe I was trying to get a truck from Formosa, and it was, so most of the battles were very, very hard won. And I think the first battle I won was when I did an act of civil disobedience. I did my first hunger strike, and that's when I realized the power of civil disobedience. I tell you what, I guess what I thought were wins is when I got the support of the Vietnamese community, because I don't know if anybody knows the history down here, but there were like shootouts and killings and boat burnings and house burnings, and it was very hard for the Vietnamese fishermen to trust anybody. And literally because I was a net person, a commercial fisherwoman, And I could do nets. I remember the Vietnamese fishermen were very intrigued that I knew how to do nets. And so that's actually how I got into dialogues with the Vietnamese elders and had meetings with them. And I actually had one of the biggest events I ever did, and it was put on by the Vietnamese, whether it was in Seadrift and in Palacios, and it was phenomenal. It really was. So it's getting the trust and the support of the fishermen, the Vietnamese, and then getting the support of the fishermen, because in these parts, the fishing industry is dying. And they believe the last nail is in their coffin. They don't believe anything is going to save them. They don't believe you can fight City Hall. So I can't tell you how many times when I was trying to get support with the Anglo fishermen, I would go on their shrimp boats and I would just almost be like a cheerleader. It's like, come to the meeting. No, please come in. It's got the bay. And it's like they just didn't believe it. They didn't believe anything I did was going to make a difference. And I remember one time when I took my shrimp boat out to sink it on top of Formosa's discharge, the fishermen, one, the Coast Guard found out, so I had 3 boatloads of Coast Guard chasing me in the middle of the night right outside the docks near the Gulf of Mexico. And the fishermen were looking at that, and fishermen do not take their boats out in deep water when there's a storm. And it was deep water, and it was a storm like crazy. And those fishermen got in their boats and came out and supported me in the bay. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't. And so it just tells you, you never know when it's going to happen and what's going to inspire people. So I think getting the trust of people I needed was the most important thing. Well, one lesson I don't think many people realize, because I know there could be a lot of environmental conferences, and I remember, they would be in buildings and it's air conditioning and they have cubby holes you go to in your conference rooms, and it's like, I truly, and being a fisherwoman and on the bay my whole life, and a little bit of a mystic. I really think I'm a mystic, but I believe it's probably natural. I think we all have, when we're children, we have a sense of how alive things are. And so it was that belief in the aliveness of the water and what it was conveying. And I really felt like it was giving me strength, is that if people could realize it's not just a Native American thing about the Father Sky or the Mother Earth. And I mean, there is a reality to it. And I think it's powerful if you can experience it. And so I would encourage people to really make an effort to get with nature. I mean, a real journey there. And I always say they should pay attention to their dreams. And I know people think, you got a dream, you want to ride, you got a dream, you want to get a restaurant or whatever. I'm not talking about those kind of dreams. I'm talking about your dreams that you have at night. Because for years, I had no one I could talk to about, Formosa's doing this and they're doing that, and what should I be doing? I had no one I could talk to about it, but I would have dreams that would like literally send me messages, and it's like, so it's pay attention to your dreams. There's a lot of wisdom there. Anyway, yeah. I do not do anything. I have got a passion and an energy, and when I go, wherever I go, I just try to be honest and authentic. And that's all I do. That's the only thing. And I remember one time you know, I've had people complain. They've told me a critique. They said, Diane, you're just shooting from the hip. You're just shooting from the hip, which is what I do. I don't prepare. I don't have a speech or anything. And I remember one time I spoke at Penn State and just doing that shooting from the hip. And I remember this professor came up to me and he said, do not ever lose that authenticity. And that's when the first time I heard it was called being authentic. And I think it's just being genuine and being honest. And I really don't know that I do anything, but I think we have to be ourselves. My vision and what I work for with Formosa and what I work with the Bay Cleanup and what I work with Exxon is like the plastic era will end, that I am doing steps that maybe not in my lifetime, but in my kids or my kids' lifetime, that this planet will see the end of that era. And that's what I'm looking for, the end of plastic. I really am. I've just seen too much damage, and there is too much science that is coming out. And then some of those scientists are like, we are messing with the very stability of our society. And here we are, just like Nero with the fiddle, just fiddling while it burns. So it's like, that's my vision. It really is. It's the big picture.